Welcome, listeners, to Thru the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today we have the pleasure and time to sit down with Lyndon of Botanist and Barrel in Asheville, North Carolina. Thank you for making time for us, friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I know in our intro it said craft beer,
yeah.
but this is, you want to explain your shop a little bit and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so we make natural cider and natural wine. We were the first folks to really focus solely on that here in the southeastern United States.
Oh, nice.
And then we have two locations. So we have our original winery location, which is Cedar Grove, North Carolina, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And then I've lived in Asheville for 22 years, so we have a little tasting bar and bottle shop right in downtown Asheville.
Yeah. We were looking at the locations, and we're like, they're 3.5 hours apart. We have to make sure we're going to the right one because it's not a quick bop over if you go to the wrong one. So the other location is the winery.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we do have a tasting
Yeah.
garden there. Both locations are very different. So one's more Manhattan, kind of all white and gold with plants, and the other is outdoor
very pretty.
only.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's rustic. It's I call it agro-industrial.
There you go.
Nice. I like the duality. You have like the fine end, and then it's like, oh yeah, kind of like
Yeah.
going to a hootenanny.
Well, one's my version, which is the agro-industrial,
Oh,
and
okay.
then this is my wife's version.
Love
Gotcha.
it. That's
Love
so
it.
great.
Very
That's
cool.
amazing. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Central North Carolina,
Okay.
in Chapel Hill, Raleigh, kind of in a
Okay.
split home.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very nice. What was it like growing up in North Carolina?
You know, so I'm first generation in the U.S., and so I think I have maybe a little bit different lens, and I didn't know coming up what the perception outside of the South was about the South.
Right.
Oh,
And
okay.
As an adult, I deeply identify as a Southerner. While I don't have a deep drawl, I love everything there is about the South. I love barbecue. I love Southern hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of unmatched. It's like I'm that idiot in New York. When I first get there, I'm like, "Oh, hey,
saying hi to everybody.
You know, and they're
Yes.
like, "What is wrong with this fool?" Because it's just
Yeah.
in me to be courteous and kind to anybody.
And look people in the eye.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's-
Acknowledge life that's next to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot about the South that I just absolutely adore and love.
Yeah.
So I love it here.
Yeah. I grew up on the other side. I grew up in Texas, so South, but a little bit different than North Carolina, but still
Yeah.
lots of barbecue, lots of saying hi to everybody.
I'm lucky to have married a Southerner because I just spent all my time on the West Coast. And so, my perception of the South was very much what you saw on TV or just told like lots of accents, slightly racist and mean. And then we've been traveling around for 4 or 5 years. And I love the South.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like,
If-
it's so different.
If it wasn't for the heat, we'd probably live we like the South. But
Yeah.
That's why
I
I'm in the
can't-
mountains here.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's a little better.
It's a little bit
Absolutely.
better for sure. We spent a summer in Oklahoma and it was too hot.
Yeah.
Way too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So family, like, do you have siblings? What did it look like, in your life growing up? Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, Botanist and Barrel, the first two of us is myself and my sister.
Okay.
So Heather is my sister, and she's 4 years older than me. And as kids, we didn't get on.
Yeah.
And then the second she left for college, we got really close. And I probably talked to my sister more than any other human on earth, except for maybe my wife.
Isn't that interesting how that happens, especially once a sibling leaves the house? So were you like freshman in high school when she started college? Or because you
Yeah,
said you're
4
4
years.
years apart, so maybe sophomore in high school and then she was off in college?
No, we never
We're in the
were
same
at the
school.
same school together.
Okay.
It was always...
Oh, yeah, that is such a
until
difference.
college. And then we
Yeah.
had 1 year together in
Okay.
college.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the same age gap as my younger brother and I. We're pretty further apart too. So
Yeah, and all my siblings are right in a row.
Yeah,
so
so
like
you're
I
pretty close.
spent like 3 out of 4 years in high school with Tanner and whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is crazy how whenever you get into the real world, you're like siblings.
You don't realize how much
Yeah.
a shared worldview
Yeah.
and how much influence, that nurture piece of parenting
Yeah.
influences kind of who we are and how
For
we look at
sure.
everything.
You're like, are we okay? Oh, we are
Yeah.
okay. Like
Yeah.
we're not that weird, but we
Yeah.
are weird.
It
Yeah.
builds that sense of community and comfort. in a world where you're trying to make it on your own.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's like someone that you can talk to about anything, and they get it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's not foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did y'all go to college?
I went to NC State for a hot minute, and then I came and visited my sister up here. She was at UNC Asheville,
Okay.
and put in to transfer like a week later.
Yeah.
I loved it up here, and I've tried to leave a few times, but I always
come back?
Always ended up here. I've been here 22 years now, so
Yeah.
Oh,
my
awesome.
entire adult life essentially.
Yeah. What did you study, and then what did you do after college?
So I studied forestry at NC State, and then I studied environmental economics was kind of the focus that I had here
Oh, wow.
at UNC Asheville.
Okay.
So environmental studies,
Yeah.
focused on willingness to pay for beauty and for nature.
Yeah.
Was kind of what I was fascinated with when I was in college.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very
Was that
cool.
influenced by your parents, or did you yourself just put yourself outdoors and just loved it?
I just always, growing up, so my grandfather, he was a Frenchman, and so if you move to the U.S. from Europe, the one thing America has that Europe doesn't have is land and purchasable land.
Oh, true.
And so, he was one of 10.
Wow.
And so when he came over, the first thing he did was buy a bunch of land up in Pennsylvania. And so
Oh,
every summer we
gotcha.
would go there, my sister and I, we'd go up there for a couple weeks to a month. And this is where I learned to forage and ferment and cook and appreciate
Wow.
Oh, that's so awesome.
nature and the outdoors. Because this is a place, there was no television. I mean, this is as rustic as you get. I think it's one of the few counties in America where the population decreases.
Oh my gosh.
Year over
Oh my
year.
gosh.
We're talking like 550 people in a county.
Yeah.
So it's super rural, super quiet.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
Yeah.
so, just
Learn to forage there and
Yeah,
everything.
it's cool to have that reverence for nature, and especially in a place that's not busy, mainly untouched. That's
Yeah.
really special.
yeah, I mean, it's just like feral apple trees everywhere.
Love
We
it.
would go pick blueberries for breakfast and
Oh my gosh,
kind of all
that's
this thing.
amazing.
And then, shout out to my mom too. She was super active in the Sierra Club
Okay.
as I was a kid coming up. So
Oh, gotcha.
What's the Sierra Club?
Sierra Club, it's a nonprofit that's focused on conservation and preservation
Okay.
of land, of wild natural lands.
Okay.
So we would go to these weekend meetups and hang out with a bunch of like-minded people.
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
thing.
that's amazing.
It's actually
Now-
where she met my stepfather was
Oh,
at
okay.
a Sierra Club retreat. I
Oh,
believe.
Very nice. Are they still in North Carolina?
Yeah, so where our winery is,
Okay.
it's a family farm. It was a huge chunk of land that was kind of pieced out, and so they bought a chunk of it, and then a couple years later, another chunk came for sale, and my
Okay.
sister and I bought that
Very cool.
and put it back together. So there's this U-pick blueberry farm there.
Oh,
I love
amazing.
that.
There was a road that drove right through it. So on the left side, it was one property, and on the right side, it was a different property. And so now it's all one
One.
property. So it was
Oh,
crazy.
very
You would pay
cool.
one box or the other box, depending on what side of the road
You were
picked in.
on.
It was like so random. So now it's one farm. So my mom actually, they just finished building a house and actually live
Okay.
on the farm. in
Oh,
Cedar Grove
incredible.
now. So,
Nice.
yeah.
That's amazing. Did they help out at all with the winery?
Oh, yes, more
Mainly
on the
tasting
ag
purposes?
side. More on the ag side. So
Okay.
they help a lot with keeping the blueberries in good shape and helped us plant some espalier, so like 2-dimensional apple trees.
Okay.
But they're retired.
Yeah. You want to put them. Yeah, they want to enjoy.
Yeah,
some
they get to
things.
spend their time relaxing now.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
What was life like outside of college? Or yeah, after college.
So I'm kind of always been a serial entrepreneur. So I've had a really interesting path to getting into wine and cider and just fermented beverage. But right outside of college, I focused on. I had a publishing company with a horrible name. We just called it QIP for short. We called it Quality Information Publishers. But I basically digitized 16 mm films.
Oh wow.
So we would go up to the Library of Congress in D.C. and do a lot of public domain research. So built at the time, one of the 10th largest in the world, like public domain libraries.
Wow.
Wow.
And we were cataloging it in a way that no one had really done before.
Okay.
So then we would start getting contracts with television networks and would get some side contracts working on documentary films for people that you would see on PBS,
Right.
and kind of stuff like that. And I did that for almost 15 years.
Wow.
Damn.
And had a few other kind of side projects that aren't notable enough to really
Yeah.
discuss,
Yeah.
but were silly and fun at the time. And then a buddy of mine was a wine sales rep,
Okay.
and wanted to go out on his own. And I had maybe bought a case of wine in my life.
I was about to ask if you drank much growing up or anything.
No, I was more of when I was younger and college and so on. I mean, I appreciated wine. We'd have champagne at Christmas time and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But I was more of a beer drinker and more of a toker kind of fella
Yeah.
back
Nice.
then.
Yeah.
And I appreciated wine, but it wasn't something I felt particularly called to or drawn to. And then, my buddy reached out and was like, "Do you want to kind of help me start this business?" And I was going through a tough time in my life and needed some distraction. And so I said, "Yeah, sure. Let's see what happens." And then I remember the moment I was at this dinner at an Italian restaurant in New York, and the food was amazing. And then I was poured this wine that just had this movie theater popcorn vibe going on, which is malolactic fermentation in wine that I just love. But it sent a light bulb off in my head about how interesting, dynamic, natural wine and cider can be. And then from that moment, I've kind of been a lifer and didn't just run this business as a wine distribution business, and then started to kind of appreciate it more as the intersection of art and science and business, as opposed to just helping my buddy out at the time kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was some of that progression? So you had this glass of wine and you're like, light bulb. What, and then you were running this company. What were some of the next steps for you to then decide to open this?
Yeah, I mean, it was the most magical kind of storm and things just happening. So my folks bought that one piece of the farm.
Okay.
And then I've always wanted to just be outdoors and just be in ag. And so when the opportunity came for that other piece, it had 10,000 square foot warehouse on it. It all just kind of magically happened.
Okay.
But there was two things that really happened, two specific sparks. And one is our first season of growing blueberries. We found that there's, it sounds spooky, but it's actually really benign. It's called exobasidium. It's this little leathery piece that grows on blueberries, like a fungal growth. And it's just leathery in the mouth. Doesn't really affect flavor, but people don't want to eat it.
Right.
So we're hand sorting this out. We're like, okay, what do we do with this? So you have culls or number twos of fruit. And so I was like, why don't we make blueberry wine like Beaujolais? And my wife was like, good luck selling that to anybody. Why don't we make cider? It is delightful. I mean, I do love it. And she was like, well, why don't we make cider? And so it was kind of this solving this problem. Okay, so what do you do with ugly fruit?
Yeah.
And then secondarily, or primarily, right alongside of it is, I have this very sweet Southern way of describing what we make. So I always tell people, I know sugar exists, I just don't believe in it.
Yeah.
And so we make bone dry. I tell people, we start at tart and then we move to sour AF.
Yeah.
This is the spectrum that I live in, and that's the spectrum that I appreciate.
Right.
So there was no Bass style cider or just bone dry cider. Or spontaneously fermented wines being made here in North Carolina. And then we realized maybe that's not even being made North Carolina and South.
Yeah, probably not.
Wow. And so we kind of were like, there's apples everywhere here.
Yeah.
There's grapes everywhere here. While the grapes grown in North Carolina I wouldn't typically call low intervention. They're pretty conventional.
Right.
There are some growers that are doing some low intervention and moving in that direction. And if there aren't producers willing to participate in that full string and actually make low intervention beverages, then you can't continue to push in this direction.
Right. Yeah.
So we kind of mashed all those things together, and we're like, we're gonna try this. None of us had ever worked in a commercial winery or cidery before.
I was going to ask.
And so it was a huge leap of faith. I mean, I have had exposure to some of the best winemakers in the world, and so there are folks I can call and ask for help from,
Right.
and that's great. And then also, my sister and brother-in-law are both culinary graduates,
Okay.
so they actually graduated from AB Tech and used to compete in like live cooking competitions.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they're pretty badass when it comes to what they can produce in the kitchen. And so we kind of, I know it's cliche, but it's very chef driven, very, we make cider and wine for food.
Perfect.
Yeah.
This isn't, while you can just crush them on your back porch,
Right.
that's not our set intent. This
Yeah.
is to be had with a meal.
Yeah.
Kind of thing as well.
And I was that makes sense now, like hearing that of how like y'all are wanting it to be very much, sitting around a table, probably with friends or family, sharing something beautiful while eating something beautiful. It makes sense why some of the stuff that, you're saying you're doing pierogies, and then I've, saw on the website y'all have, like you said, like, it looks like there's food and different things like that. So it makes sense, like looking at the room here and the bottle shop, that it's like this is meant to be like an event with friends, and like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I identified as like when I was a kid, I loved every year when there was the neighborhood pig picking, and so that kind of potluck mentality. And what people don't realize is cider that's made like wine, as opposed to cider that's made like beer, is probably the most versatile pairing you can possibly have.
Yeah.
It goes, as long as you're not dipping into really, really deep, dark, rich flavors like Osabuco or eating oxtails or something like that.
Yeah.
Cider's about as good a companion as you could possibly find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so we've just really leaned into to apple and co-fermentation,
Okay.
so cider-based things. Apples also just grow really good here.
Yeah.
And so you can grow apples without any real intervention. We spray compost tea, and the compost tea is derived from the sites themselves.
Oh, cool.
So on the 12 acres that I personally manage, we do source some fruit from some other growers.
Okay.
And we prune, and that's it. And that's a real rarity in the southeastern United States because it's so hot and so humid. I mean, when you're working with 90% humidity,
Right.
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do, especially if you're going for number ones. It's a very different, you can get away with a lot if you're not worried about beauty. And I could care less what my fruit looks like as long as the quality's there
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's not full of bacterial or fungal kind of, the bad ones.
No,
Then I can
absolutely.
work with it.
Right.
So I don't need to spray for beauty
Yeah.
like a majority of growers necessarily.
Right. Because they're selling the apple as it is.
Yeah,
So,
for eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like I went on this trip to Hong Kong last year or the year before, and when you go in the grocery stores there, every individual piece of fruit is wrapped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the obsession with perfect looking, beautiful fruit. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
here you can walk into a grocery store, Aldi, whatever it is,
Right.
and it's just in a loose bag.
Yeah.
And,
Or
all
loose
kind of thrown around.
itself.
Yeah, or just loose itself. And yeah, there are places in the world where even that doesn't fly.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I actually was talking to another winemaker the other day, and they had seen a picture of an apple that we have on our website, and they were like, "What fruit is that?" Because it's got so much blemish
Oh, I see.
and kind of like fungal things growing on
Yeah.
it that they didn't even necessarily recognize as an apple.
Oh, my gosh.
So that's like how crazy
Right.
our stuff can end up looking.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, especially there's like I say nostalgia, but a nice rusticness of when you just go to a farm stand and you see the fruit, because it's not pumped full of color, pumped full of water, all these things. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I remember, like you were talking about as a kid. That's what you remember pulling off a tree if you were like, oh cool, an apple tree. And sometimes you bite into the crab apple and you're like, oh, it's so
Yeah.
tart. But it is. That's how it used to be.
Yeah, I love
and I like that. I like that personal attention to it, about how you want to curate it where you know the science and art behind it, but you're also like, we want to let it do its thing. We want to let it be what it's naturally supposed to be.
Yeah, that's wild. How did y'all? I have a couple questions, obviously, podcast. But how did y'all end up with the name Botanist and Barrel? And is that's because that's also what the winery is called?
So, our winery is called Botanist and Barrel, and then I want to say 5 or 6 vintages ago, we decided we wanted to make grape-only line.
Okay.
To kind of like lean into my wife and I's background. My wife has been in wine for 20 plus years.
Oh, amazing.
And so we were rapping with some of our friends here in North Carolina that are in the wine business, and they're like, "You're never going to be able to make spontaneous, like, air quotes, natural wine in North Carolina." And so we kind of landed on calling our wine label Defy.
Okay.
It's kind of like a...
We're going to defy you.
You're like, all right, bet. Watch this.
I see you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But yeah, Botanist and Barrel is the bigger umbrella, and
Right.
that's where we do cider and co-ferments, and that's really what we're known for, is doing co-fermentation.
Yeah.
And just being completely playful, as long as it's locally grown. The only rule we have at Botanist and Barrel is don't add. Can I cuss? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
add shit that doesn't need to be there.
Right.
Don't
Yeah.
just like throw things at it for no particular reason. And it needs to be locally grown. So 95, if not more, of what we play with is going to be within 210 miles of our farm.
Oh, that's
Wow.
So
amazing.
it's southern. I mean, I use this word hyper-local, I think is the best way to kind
Hyperlocal
of
for sure.
describe it.
Yeah. That's
But we
incredible.
landed on Botanist and Barrel. Took us a while to come to land on, because we wanted to convey a sense of local, and that this is an agricultural product. Sometimes we lose sight. We see something that's so readily available on a grocery store shelf that we kind of forget that someone grew this with hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The
so
human connection.
Yeah, we wanted to, and I feel like botanist, we identify that as a human. So
Right.
there's a very personal kind of thing. I mean, we get this question all the time when people are trying to be funny, like, "Who's the botanist?"
Right.
Kind of thing. I'm like, well, we kind of all are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we landed there. And then I love, is it alliteration?
I
where
think
it's
so,
B?
yeah.
Yeah, the
kind of
B&B.
love alliteration. So, and Barrel kind of said we're making cider like wine, as opposed to cider like I think of wine barrels. Maybe that's just in my own head. And so we just kind of landed on it. But it took us over a year
Yeah.
to all agree, because this is a project started with my sister, her husband, Derek, and then my wife, Amy.
Yeah,
So
so
there's
support
4 of
y'all.
us. So getting a consensus can sometimes be a challenge.
I'm sure.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure. We've talked to a lot of, not a lot, but there's quite a, I mean, it's kind of hard to open a business by yourself no matter what, but then something as large as this or a brewery or anything, it definitely takes multiple hands. And so hearing the collaboration and all this stuff, like, it's just such a cool thing, especially in the family. Like, I think that's an awesome thing that it's like on farmland that is close to the family and all that stuff. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, especially the family dynamic can be hard at times, but it seems like you guys have good communication, also respect.
We
And
have
that-
big families,
That
too.
may have come from learning, which is great. But yeah, I think that can be, especially when you're naming a business, everybody wants to have their input be heard and wants to kind of have like a cohesive agreement, as opposed to somebody just being like, no, this is what's better for branded marketing, so this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, how's the community reception been for Botanist and Barrel being here, and also just kind of like educating the demographic and the customers out here? Have you seen a rise in interest, or what's that been like?
Yeah, when we started, we thought we would make something like 500 gallons a year. We'd be open 1, maybe 2 days a week, just for a couple of hours on the weekends. And really quickly realized that, people here in the South aren't just going to drink sweet tea and lemonade. That there is folks out there looking for cider that isn't sweet. So
Yeah.
dry cider that does have a sense of place. So we were very pleasantly surprised.
Nice.
And so we've continually grown to a point to where we don't really want to produce anything more.
Okay.
We just want to produce better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're at
Wonderful.
a point where we are more fine-tuning. I learned by what I call the shotgun method. So in our early years, we were making over 100 different fermentations.
Oh, wow.
And so we've trimmed that down to something like 40 or 50 a
Okay.
year, the ones that we love, that make the most sense to us, and that guests also love.
Right.
because all those things going to have to marry together.
Yeah, that's still a wide portfolio,
Yeah.
40 to 50 to fermentations.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane.
And so, I mean, we kind of have this reputation for being super experimental and being wild, and I think with those things, sometimes people think that we're careless. So I'm always careful to make sure that it comes across that we are paying attention to every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to know everything, and the way you do that is by experimenting,
Right.
so that you can see how everything works,
Right.
and learn empirically, and then you can kind of take all that accumulated knowledge and like really hone in on exactly how to present.
Being really intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we do really well is color, and we don't use any chemicals or anything to produce the colors. It's all just fruit and skins. So we have some really interesting processes that we've developed over the years, or just learned to really have beverages that have color pop. Because first thing we do is, drink and eat with our eyes.
Oh yeah.
Labels are a huge important thing, and any packaged product. So yeah, we've kind of, I think that's helped us a lot. But it has been, in a lot of ways, it has been an uphill battle. Most cider consumed in America is, what I would call American cider, which is sweet.
Yep.
So it's cider made, fermented dry, and then back sweetened with some sort of flavor, or if it's a plain cider, just sugar, kind of thing. And we don't back sweeten anything. We have one exception. We keep one sweet cider on draft at a time, because we are in a tourist destination.
Yeah.
And when people walk in the door and they have no idea what they're walking into,
Right.
that this is one of the nerdiest bars in the South, that Southern hospitality kicks in.
Yeah. You want to have something for somebody.
Yeah, it's my job to make sure everybody's happy and to have a little party with you when you walk through our doors. And so if I have to stare at you and say, sorry, I don't have anything for you, that doesn't really vibe with who we are, with a part of who we are. So we do make this one exception where we have this one cider that is sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's great. I was going to ask really quick, did you feel like it's an advantage, because this is such a beer-centric town, that you were able to bring this offering to allow all those other people that couldn't have cider or natural wines because they couldn't go anywhere to find it? Yeah, like there was finally a place for it, or do you feel that it was almost like a disadvantage for you?
I think both.
Oh, okay.
I feel like there was a huge void for having dry cider and our style of wine here in Asheville, and just in North Carolina, and even the South at large. And if you've noticed the trend over the last 5 years in particular, you're seeing a lot of breweries produce wine and cider themselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's part of, sour beer was a huge focus for a while, and then I feel like that sour beer community kind of shifted, and I could be totally wrong in this, shifted into kind of exploring cider, wine, vermouth, that space a lot more.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you.
And so Botanist and Barrel would not exist as a brand without a bunch of breweries getting behind us in the early days. Like I owe so much to a bunch of folks here, Resident Culture, Wooden Robot, Fonta Flora, on down the line.
Right.
Without these folks getting behind what we do and kind of giving us the platform,
Right.
we would probably be much smaller and much more under the radar. I don't think we're on many people's radar.
Yeah.
In the first place, but we have, botanist heads. We have a small and very dedicated cult following.
Well, that's amazing.
For being muscadine evangelists and pawpaw evangelists, and producing a European style cider that just isn't common here in the U.S. that's being made locally, at least.
Right. Yeah.
I love
think
that.
that's a very cool spot to be in. And I think, you also have a really good location here in Asheville itself, being able to be in a place where there's a lot of foot traffic, I bet. And so, especially during the summer, I'm sure you have a lot of people coming in. So y'all had the plot of land. How did y'all open both at the same time, or did y'all just start with the tasting room out at the winery, or what did that look like of how y'all opened the two locations?
Yeah, so our first 2 years we were just a farm.
Okay.
And we did U-pick and wholesale for fruit.
Okay.
And Wicked Weed was actually one of our first huge blueberry customers. So we
Oh,
made this
awesome.
blueberry sour beer called Milk Tea with them. And,
Oh, wow.
that was really fun. And then we kind of did that while we were doing the winery build out.
Yeah.
Because we were the first winery in Orange County, North Carolina. And so there was some
orange tape.
there was
Or
some
red tape?
confusion with
Not
how
orange tape.
with all the regulations
Right.
and the permitting about how to actually make this all work. So it was a longer process than we anticipated. I think anybody who's built any
yeah.
brewery or winery would tell you that.
Yeah.
Just go on and double your timeline. But yeah, so we started there.
Okay.
And the Asheville location's only been here for 4 years. Will be May.
Okay.
And so we're coming into our 9th vintage. So I guess we were there for 4 or 5 years first.
Okay. Were you able during that time to bring your product into Asheville itself to sell at different locations before y'all are able to open a tasting room here?
Yeah, so we definitely did. In North Carolina, we're lucky enough to be able to self-distribute.
Okay.
Oh,
And
nice.
So we definitely were
Self-distributing,
into Asheville and
Okay.
North Carolina at large. And then fast forward to today, I think we're in 7 states
Oh,
outside of
wow.
North Carolina.
Oh, congratulations.
So
That's amazing.
it's pretty cool. And, just in very small amounts.
Right.
Yeah.
Super nerdy cider bars.
Right. I was about to
kind
say,
of
like,
thing.
probably like really specific locations that like really fit. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, what's great about that is it gives you really honest data and feedback to see how your business is growing, and making those micro adjustments, I think, is better for sustainability long term for a smaller
Right.
business than you just trying to push volume, and then not seeing it go anywhere. And then it's, I don't know, I feel like it's like a false pretense.
Yeah, no, for sure. How did y'all decide to open a tap room here? What was that decision like?
We had recognized a couple years in that the margin for selling wholesale is a lot less, and we had recognized for this to be sustainable for us with the way that we grow and the cost of that we were going to need some more kind of direct to consumer.
Right.
And with our original location being outdoor only, we're at the mercy of weather.
Yes.
Elements.
And so we could have a huge event completely rained out, and that
Uh.
was becoming problematic. So
Gotcha.
looking for a second tasting room was about resiliency, predictability, consistency, all those things. And some dear friends of ours are landlords here,
Okay.
and the place we're sitting in right now used to be Over Easy Cafe. It was
Okay.
one of the oldest, longest standing restaurants in Asheville.
Oh, wow.
And they wanted to do a project that involved dinner. They were
Okay.
kind of locked into as being a brunch restaurant.
Okay.
And so they knew we were looking, and when they wanted to make that leap, they reached out, and this is just a perfect location. This is it's a 22-seat shotgun bar.
Yeah.
So it's intimate and just the perfect location for us. My wife also always wanted to have a small native yeast focused wine shop.
Okay.
And so that's kind of coupled with that here.
Right.
So it's Botanist and Barrel tasting bar and bottle shop, and our goal here is for you to come in and try a bunch of different ciders. So we serve flights.
Okay.
We're one of the few places in a kind of high volume tourist place that will serve
Yeah.
you a
Right.
flight in
Yeah,
Asheville.
very true.
Because it is time
It
consuming.
is time consuming.
But
yeah.
it's I tell people I want you to feel all the feels.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want you to. While I would love if you liked everything, I don't think it's really possible for you to like everything that we produce.
Right.
Because we produce so many different things in so many different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
That I want you. If you hate something, tell me about it. Let's have a conversation. Like that's our goal here, is to kind of push into space that people's palates didn't know was there.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and so it's fun. It
Yeah.
also gives you like this really playful juxtaposition where you get to explore, and
Yeah.
I love watching people's faces in here sometimes.
Right.
Because everyone's idea of what dry
Right.
means is very different.
It is. Yeah.
Because dry can mean, I think technically can mean up to 3.5 grams per liter of residual sugar. Maybe it's just 2. I forget exactly where the
Yeah.
line is drawn. But to me, that's kind of like sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so our dry is truly dry.
Dry.
I'm like laser sharp, bone dry. Like
Yeah.
I try to convey it across, our staff, our team here totally tries to convey that in a way that really hits home. But some people don't believe you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they take a sip and they're like, wow, that really is dry. And we're like, we're trying to tell you.
Yeah.
But then you can ease them in. We do have ways of, we call it false sense of sweetness, like wood sugar, so barrel aging.
Oh,
or
right. I see.
Bottle conditioning with fresh fruit. There are ways to make something so fruity that people think it's sweet. And then I
Right.
get into this conversation with them. They're like, oh, this is sweet. And I'm like, there's no sugar.
Yeah.
And so then you can have this other conversation.
Right.
So our goal here is really,
Sounds like education.
I don't, so my wife would say yes. I look at it as a conversation.
Oh,
Because I
yeah.
feel like education is like preachy. And when I
Yeah.
drink, I don't want to be talked at.
I see.
I want to just hang out and have good conversation.
Yeah.
So I look at it as
Learning.
conversational.
Yeah.
Cool.
Conversational.
Idea exchange,
Yeah,
maybe,
idea
or something like
exchange.
that.
Okay,
along
idea
those
exchange.
lines.
Okay,
I like
got
the way
it.
you
I like
label
that.
it.
Because
Yeah.
I think education, it sounds preachy and can be arrogant. That's one of my biggest.
yeah.
That's one of my biggest beefs with the wine industry sometimes, and specifically this kind of natural wine subset, or where it's moved, is it's gotten kind of like overly dogmatic sometimes, and can be very. While it's supposed to be all about inclusivity, can sometimes feel very
Right.
exclusive.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't want any part
Or
of that stuff.
gatekeeping kind
Yeah,
of
I don't
too?
want,
Yeah.
or like, oh, you don't count as natural wine because you've done this particular thing.
Got it.
But there's no set definition of natural wine, and my belief. I've gotten less dogmatic over time. My belief is that if you are doing everything you can in your region,
Yeah.
and while there are some hard lines, like you can't be like spraying a bunch of crazy stuff,
Right.
but when we make these lines in the sand, I think we really do a disservice. So I don't want to sound like like we do a bunch of crazy stuff and then call it natural wine, because we don't. But at the same time, what other people call natural wine, doesn't fit my personal definition of it,
Right.
and vice versa. But I'm totally fine if they call it natural wine,
Yeah.
and we will present it and sell it as they would like us to, as long
Right.
as they're within these set kind of more loose boundaries.
Yeah.
But it's more about folding people in than
Right.
drawing hard
Ooh,
lines
I like that.
in the
Folding
sand.
them
I
in.
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Is the way I look
It's
at
like keeping inspiring people. I love this experience that you offer. I think this is amazing.
And it's not even open. And we're like, this place is sick.
Yeah,
like,
we're,
ooh,
we're
come hang
definitely going to
out.
come back here for
Yeah.
pierogies tonight. But I do agree, because I think when you become gate guarding or gatekeeping to people because they don't fit and follow certain lines or rules, you stifle creativity or stifle people that can change, this industry and bring, a fresh new wave to it. And so I find that's really respectful of you, and I think really amazing. I think all the future dreamers out there, that's something to keep in perspective, of being like, just because you have a dream and someone has something similar but it's not the same as yours, doesn't mean that they don't belong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's, we all have to work towards our, whatever that utopian vision is that we have in our lives or industry that we work, in. And so if I'm talking to a grower and say they're spraying something that, I don't appreciate, that's a conversation I want to have with them.
Yeah.
Not just say, F off.
Yeah.
It's more like, let's have a dialogue and be like, this is why I want it like this.
Right.
And this is how we can move you there.
Right.
And having those conversations, I think, is key.
Yeah. Just being open to it, I think that's a huge thing. A lot of people would just, back out of it or something like that. So that's pretty cool that you're still open to it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about a project that I don't know, this is like such a cool thing that we haven't like experienced before. So I don't know, like a really cool project that you're like really proud of outside of just opening and doing the things. Like, is there one cider that you made or a wine that you were just like, I'm really, really proud of that?
Oh, there's so many.
I'm sure.
I'll talk
Let's say when you're
about.
doing-
I know when you're doing like 40 or 50, like you said, but
Yeah.
still.
I'll talk about. I'll try to limit to just two. So one that, I self-describe as a muscadine evangelist, and so muscadine here in North Carolina typically has a reputation for being kind of gas station plunk. We're talking $7 bottles, case stacked. It's super sweet. It's just drippingly sweet. And so we set out to make muscadine wine that is bone dry. And what's so great about muscadines is you can grow them here with very little input and manipulation.
Yeah. Can you describe a little bit of a muscadine? Because I
Yeah.
feel like that is kind of a lesser known thing here, but in the South it's more popular. So
Yeah, it's it's one of the most nostalgic things here in the South for people, because as kids, you eat fresh muscadines, or you have muscadine jam or muscadine juice, and the closest lateral to it would be Concord,
Gotcha.
because it's a native grape. You know,
Yeah.
it grows wild here in North Carolina, and now there are named cultivated varieties that are grown commercially.
okay.
But
Thank
yeah,
you for that little bit of an explanation.
I don't know how to, I always tell people muscadine tastes like muscadine. There's
Yeah.
no way to describe it. Oftentimes when you're drinking a lot of beverages, you can be like, oh, this is, flowery and white stone fruits and, or, all those kind of things. And muscadine is
It's
just
a
muscadine.
muscadine.
Yeah, it's just its own thing.
Yeah, but
love that.
Concord is the closest
Yeah.
lateral to it. Todd up at Wild Ark in New York makes a Concord wine that is very similar to the muscadine wine.
Got it.
It's the closest thing.
Yeah.
And I just love that Concord wine so much.
Yeah.
I just love it. So we make this. We work with a grower here in North Carolina. His name's T.Y. Baker. I love him to death. He's like one of the most classic Southern gentlemen you'll ever meet.
Oh, wonderful.
Like introduces himself. Hey, it's T.Y. Baker, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I know T.Y. I just love him. And so he's certified organic grower. He grows for grocery, so it's the most beautiful fruit I've ever seen, like grapes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so we take his fruit and we do carbonic maceration with it. So it actually ferments inside of each little berry.
Oh, okay.
And the idea behind carbonic is you do this to lower tannin and to get the most fruity, juicy, kind of bright expression of fruit.
Okay.
Muscadines are the skin is incredibly tannic, and the
Okay.
seeds are incredibly astringent. And muscadines are typically bigger than your classic bunch grape. They also don't ripen in a bunch.
Okay.
While some varieties grow in bunches, they ripen individually. So you pick individual fruit.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it can be very
Tedious?
yes, tedious is a good word for it. But this muscadine, we call it just carbonic muscadine petinat. So it finishes its fermentation in bottle, so it's naturally
Okay.
sparkling. We don't force carbonate anything. We own a bright tank, but it's just to push things through.
Oh,
So
yeah,
we've
yeah.
never force carbonated a beverage
Oh,
in our
wow.
history. Our cans are can conditioned.
Wow.
There's only like
Oh,
a
that's
handful
beautiful.
of people, like Sierra Nevada's
Right.
one.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I don't know how they do it to that scale.
Right.
And there's just like a handful of people that I've ever come across that can condition
condition.
cans, because it requires some amazing technical precision to pull it off.
Absolutely.
But so we're kind of known for making petinats.
Okay.
So this carbonic muscadine petinat, to me, it is just unapologetically Southern. I don't care if you like it or if you don't like it, and neither does it. And it is
Sounds
just,
Southern.
it is just so muscadine.
That's awesome.
But it's juicy and bright and fruity and just ever so lightly effervescent and bubbly. So to me, it's just like a big warm hug from muscadine. Like I want nothing else after a hike or with a plate of barbecue or with anything really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just one of my big time happy places. And
I love that.
I was super pleasantly surprised. I didn't know how the market would respond to it. So we did a kind of proof of concepts run a couple years ago. And every year since then, we've doubled, or if not more, of what we make of that particular.
Oh, awesome.
Because it's found small homes in like Knoxville,
The
and
response has been
Atlanta,
great.
and some other southern places.
Right.
And when you watch someone try this for the first time, especially people who are like, I don't really like muscadine wine because it's always sweet. I'm like, hear me out.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
Hold up.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's change perceptions. Let's fix this.
Yeah.
And then you see it because they're like, oh, this, then a story comes out
Right.
about their grandmother, their grandfather, their aunt, or whatever it is, in that time where they would eat muscadines in summer. And I love those
it.
moments.
Yeah.
I think it's what keeps me going in this business is like just
The stories,
finding
especially.
those moments. There was a gentleman here last night. We talked for 30 minutes about pawpaws.
Yeah.
He was in West Virginia, and he was like, "You have pawpaw cider? This is fucking amazing!" Like, holy shit. And it was, just I love those conversations
Right.
where
Yeah.
we just nerd out on fruit, but through beverage.
Right.
It's really cool.
We have a podcast. That's all we
That's
do.
nerd- yeah,
we got
totally.
it.
Yeah.
Like we
I
get
mean,
it.
We cold call people we don't know. It's cool to find a connection.
Yeah.
Like there's so much separation in the world now. It's cool to sit down and talk to something that you both can connect on. It's like, oh, we're really not all that different. When we have a chance to get to know one another.
Yeah,
Well, I like that.
I
I'm
love
glad Muscadine is represented well.
So that's one.
Yeah, I wanna hear
what's
the
the
other
second one?
The other one, it's more of a genre of what we produce. So we do these single orchard pet nats, so snapshot in time of this one orchard. So we do a lot of field blends.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
I don't work a lot with single varietal
Single, yeah.
apples because I feel like I want diversity in it, and yeast wants diversity to have a good, healthy
Yeah.
ferment.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of field blends, but we have a lot of these sites where we kind of have lifetime leases or long-term agreements. So we manage the site and get the bounty of fruit
Right.
from it as well. And so here in the South, it's hard to get high elevation orchards, but being based here in Asheville,
Right.
I'm lucky enough. So I have some sites that are 3,500 foot of elevation,
Yeah.
Okay.
like on the side of mountains. So we're talking lower quality soil, super rocky, and that leads to really high quality fruit.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it leads to fruit that has more backbones and more acid,
Okay.
and where you can develop more tannin. Sun equals sugar.
Mhm.
If you want to just boil it down to this in the simplest terms, there's
Yeah.
a lot more to it than that.
Right.
Please tell it to me like I'm dumb.
So,
I'm totally okay
no,
with that.
I mean, so if you have these, high elevation sites where there isn't as much heat, the sugar content isn't maybe there, but you get all these other kind of nuances and layers when you make cider.
Oh, okay.
And so we have some, these are kind of old abandoned homesteads or where the next generation didn't want to continue on
yeah.
in ag or farming or taking care of them. So one I love, there's two I love. Rich Mountain Riches, which is the name of the mountain. This was planted by this gentleman, Lester, like back in the 60s and 70s. It was recently purchased by a friend of a friend, and so I got folded into all this. And so we're on our third vintage of Rich Mountain Riches, and it's just the aromatics and the flavor profile are just super unique. I don't think you would find anything like it other than from this one specific place.
Yeah.
And I love that that's something that you can make happen.
Yeah.
Because it's very, it's very romantic.
Yeah, it is very
No, it
romantic.
is. I like the way you said like
And-
snapshot. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I look at it, it's like a Polaroid. Like it's just, you get this one moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's that season, so it's whatever weather happened. It's that specific site. And what's crazy,
Right.
some apples are biannual, so not every tree is going to produce fruit every year.
Right.
And you may have a heavy crop load on, your Old Town Pippins one year, and then the next year, your like Old Time Yellow Delicious are doing really good. And so you're going to have different blends
Okay.
each year.
Yeah.
And so it really is just capturing that particular moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so pretty.
And so it's a really cool thing. And then I kind of look at him as like a brother from another mother. Philip Kendall has Green Heart Farms, which is almost, I think it's like 3,800 feet. It's on the North Carolina-Tennessee border right near Max Patch, if anybody's
Okay.
ever been there.
I haven't been there, but I've heard of it.
And they planted, it's this community. So there's some home sites up there, and then there's this kind of joint managed farm.
Okay.
Philip kind of runs the farm there, and so we've been working with them for all the fruit that they aren't using to make apples or applesauce and kind of some other homestead
Wow.
kind of things. And I love the ciders that are produced up there. They have this kind of lemon curd yet smoky
Oh wow.
kind of vibe to them that
Oh God, that sounds amazing.
isn't that I don't
I've
oftentimes
never,
see.
Yeah.
And so I just love these,
Yeah.
these kind of very specific moments that
Right.
happen. And
Yeah.
Philip's site there's an old cow pasture there. And so anybody who's, I'm sure it's anywhere, West Coast, East Coast, the edge of any old pasture land, if you were feeding your livestock apples, the ugly ones, which was a really common practice, you get wild trees.
Yeah.
You get feral trees. Because a lot of people don't realize every apple you've had in a grocery store, this thing was grafted.
Yeah.
Apples, there's more diversity in apples on Earth than I think any other thing that we consume as human beings.
I
There's
see.
hundreds,
Like anything that
there's
grows.
100,000 different varieties.
Yeah.
Right,
Like
yeah.
apples are so cool. There's 5 seeds in every apple. They flower in 5s, but if you plant those 5 seeds, it's 5 different apple trees every time. They're not true to mother.
Right.
Gotcha.
So the genetic diversity is
It's crazy.
kind of insane. So if
Yeah.
you
Oh, that's wild.
make a new apple tree, you don't know what you're going to get. It could be
Yeah.
like you were talking about earlier, crab apples that are like super astringent
Yeah.
and are like sandpaper in your mouth, or it could be the world's best next apple. Who
Yeah.
know?
Right.
You
Who
just
knows? You never
don't know.
Yeah.
But Philip's site is really cool because he has
A lot of crazy.
some of those feral trees. There's this whole old cow, section.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Where there's a bunch of feral trees.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's pretty cool. And we've got a couple. We have 6 of these sites that are like this.
Okay.
We also work with Greg Strader, which is about 45 minutes north of us, just across the Virginia border.
Okay.
And he planted a beautiful heirloom apple orchard, I think 16, 17 years ago,
Wow.
and reached out, kind of heard through mutual friends that we were around, and came and checked us out, and then was like, "Hey, by the way,
I
have
have
all
some
these
apples.
And
Oh,
I don't know
that's
what to do with them."
amazing.
Every year, we get a call from somebody who says that they have 100 trees somewhere, and no one's harvesting them or taking care of them, and if we want to
Oh, fuck yeah.
step in. So this
Wow.
is kind of growing. We're at a point where I can't really take on anymore.
Right.
And my brother-in-law and I kind of both head up harvest and dealing with all this stuff. And it's
Wow, I bet it's a lot.
it's a lot. We're pulled in a lot of different directions. We don't have a salesperson on our team, so it kind of just falls on,
Yeah.
Everybody
4 of
wears
us.
multiple hats.
for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So
Yeah.
every day is a new day. Today I'm making pierogies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, how do you manage all of this? Because you have this location, you have that location, you have the blueberries, you have the apples, and then you have all these other sites, and then there's also the wine that y'all also have, and then the distribution, and wow, y'all are busy.
It's like it's 4 or 5 businesses wrapped into one.
Sounds like 5 to 10 businesses wrapped into
Possibly.
one.
Yeah.
But I do want to shout out our entire team. We've had Bailey, our winemaker, cider maker, has been with us for going on 5 years now. Our assistant winemaker Caitlin's been with us for a while now, and Mark's been with us for a long time. So we have
good
an
team.
absolutely amazing staff.
Yeah.
We've got a great team here in Asheville too, and I've got some folks that work in the industry that actually work at other wineries or wine bars that help me prune and harvest.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So we have this kind of, they just help me
Yeah.
10 days a year, 5 days a year,
Right.
1 day a year, whatever it may
Right.
be.
Yeah.
That's why
So-
community is great.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have a lot of support and some beautiful people on
Yeah.
our team that make it all happen.
Oh
too.
yeah.
So-
It sounds amazing.
This question kind of ties into our last question, so I want to ask this one before we do our last question. So, talking about such an amazing team, which you obviously have to have with this amazing shop, and you seem like an awesome person, what would be a key to a success for other businesses on how to retain employees or almost make better employees?
Oh, wow. This is a great question. I don't know that I have any deep insight into it other
Okay.
than, you just need to be human with people. I'm not a fan of using the word family with the team because it can be manipulative in terms of
We appreciate that.
getting them to work harder or kind of thing. But I
Yeah.
think I treat everyone like they are my family, but I don't do that in a manipulative way to get them
there's
to
a
work
separation.
harder for me or anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
We all need to take care of ourselves and have those boundaries in life with every relationship we have, including, professionally.
Right.
But just, and also making sure that you have room for growth.
Yeah.
Not everybody that you're going to work with wants to grow at particular moments. But if they do, you need to have those opportunities for them. Otherwise, people lose interest, and
Right.
it's not fun. If the workplace is, I don't do this in the pursuit of money. I would be a fool to do that. We're lucky enough to make it work, but this is not. The joke in the wine business is, you want to know how to make $1 million, just start with 5.
Yep.
So
in the
it's-
brewery industry, it's
same
want to make
thing.
you want one, start with 2.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. I'm here because I love it and it's something I
Yeah.
believe in, and I feel like our team are like-minded individuals that are here because they love it.
I love it.
And I just ask, the best thing is just communicate, be upfront. Every time we interview anybody, we're like, look, this is family run. This is controlled chaos.
Yeah.
I'm HR.
Oh, that very transparent.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just be real and upfront with people, and just always be human. I think that's the thing is when we start being robotic,
Yeah.
and we start looking at people, numbers over people, I think it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
And while
Absolutely.
the numbers got to make sense,
Right.
like I'm not
Yes.
saying that they don't need to make sense. They have to
Right.
make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a
But-
balance to it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta work on the human side.
I love
first,
that.
I think.
I love that.
I love that. You want to ask our last question?
Yeah, well, I guess we kind of have two, but
Okay, go ahead.
the first one being, if you had a piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Slow the fuck down.
Time,
Slow down.
time does move at a whip's pace.
Yeah.
It is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I tend to just move at a lightning speed, and has gotten me in a lot of trouble. I mean, there's huge advantages to it, but it's gotten me in a couple hospital stays over the years. Like I have just moved way too fast in so many aspects of my life, and I feel like now that I'm over 40, I'm just now learning how to control that impulse to move that fast. But it's hard. It's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just
Yeah.
slow down.
Slow down. I love
No,
that.
that's amazing. Shows there's hope for others too.
Yeah.
You can harness it. You can direct it.
Yeah. Delegate it to somebody else or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. All right. And our last thing is, with it being almost March, what's today, the 28th or something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah. Almost March, which is crazy. What are you looking forward to for the rest of 2025? Any big projects or releases that you're looking forward to?
This year, my biggest goal is just to spend more time outside and to be with it while I'm there and not be in a rush.
Yeah.
Because it's something I'm pulled in so many different directions that oftentimes I don't get to be present with it.
I understand
And
that.
we do have a really solid and amazing team right now, and so things are relatively smooth. Minus the storm that happened here in
Yeah.
Asheville and the lack
Yeah.
of visitors.
Yeah.
But that being said, we're
I
relatively
guess, yeah.
smooth, and so I feel for the first time I'm going to be able to be
Slow
present
down. Yeah, I mean-
and to grow with more attention to detail and to just be with it.
Right.
It's going to be tough for me to slow down and do that. I have to change my
Be
my brain
intentional about it.
chemistry a
Yeah.
little bit
Yes, absolutely.
in those moments. But it's also beautiful, when you go up to some of these sites, the cell service sucks.
Yeah.
So I am
can't.
forced to be disconnected in a certain way. But that's what I think most looking forward to, is having a little bit more time with the kids. And when I am out, walking around in nature, to be able to just sit with it.
Sit with it a little more.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
I guess we didn't ask this at all. But anything, did we want to, we might be able to chop this off if we need to,
What's
but
up?
did we want to talk about anything with the hurricane and what happened here?
I'll definitely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what was it like, I guess, just with the hurricane? Like what happened with y'all's business, and also probably y'all's trees and crop and different things? How were you been affected by that?
Yeah, this is such a long, this could be such a long conversation, so I'll keep it super
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
It was total, most people here were completely blindsided, myself included. It was total apocalyptic chaos is what it felt like. No cell service, you didn't know what was
Yeah.
going on, no potable water. It was crazy. There were some beautiful things that came out of it.
I saw that the community really stepped up. It was wild driving in. She was driving and I was just in the back with the cats, but just seeing it, like, it looks like a totally different planet. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the loss of lives primarily. Hopefully, I'll keep it together here.
Yeah.
And just the loss of people's livelihoods
Yeah.
was just kind of astonishing. It's like unconscionable that something like that would just come seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I think now we're all a lot more primed and prepared for when those things happen next. And one of the things that I stressed after maybe 2 weeks after the storm, when I was able to decompress for a hot minute, when I got down to our farm in Cedar Grove, and was able to be somewhat removed for a few days. We got my kids and some neighbor kids out to grandparents and stuff so they could have a little bit better quality of life for a little while.
Yeah.
Was that just because a building wasn't washed away, that the effect on small business here is profound and continues to be profound.
Oh, yeah.
4 of my favorite restaurants don't exist anymore in Asheville for a variety of reasons, but mainly due to lack of guests.
Condolences. That's so sad.
Or not having
Visitors.
or not having insurance money come through.
Yeah.
Flood insurance is a whole conversation for a whole nother.
Oh, yeah.
A whole nother day.
We've
but
read
it's
all
brutal.
the things where I'm just like, the community
It is
has
wild.
stepped up more than the state, than the federal government, than anybody. And I think that like really shows too. It's like, fuck, when you can't rely on the big people that say we're going to be here for you, it literally comes down to your neighbors. Like that's who it does.
But I reached out to some kind of national publications and was like, I would really like for y'all to share this story that, in my particular case, and not trying to promote myself in any way in this, but that small businesses here, even if our storefronts may be closed, but even if we open them back up, all the other businesses that didn't open back up that we're relying upon also affects us.
Right.
Half of my income stream comes from Western North Carolina through this bar and through restaurants, bars, bottle shops up here.
Right.
And when so many of them aren't open,
Right.
this is a huge, I don't know how to prepare for something quite like that. So I feel so fortunate that we're still going.
Yeah.
And people stepped up. I mean, we did a post on social media and it just said "one last vintage?" And I was basically like, look, if people don't show up and show out for us and for everybody up here,
This won't be here.
I can't continue to go on.
Right.
I still have a team that needs
Be
to
paid.
to get paid and be able to live.
It's not just you; it's their livelihoods
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's there's 16 of us, all day at Botanist, and so it affects a lot of people, including our team in Cedar Grove,
Right.
because it's all folded together, and I don't think a lot of people connected those dots.
Yeah.
That it's not just about property loss exclusively, and it's not just about a storefront not being open exclusively. That there's a lot of interconnectedness that was affected, and so we're slowly seeing people come back on board, but we're also seeing a lot of people
Right.
close doors permanently.
Yep.
So there is a void and vacuum to be filled here. But the number one thing I want to stress is Asheville, all the Western North Carolina, we're all happy and to welcome anybody back to visit us.
Yes.
We are, the folks of us that are open would love to see you.
Yeah.
So come see us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was the one thing we just didn't know coming back, because we were here a week before it hit. And the places that we had podcasted with, were deeply affected, one specifically. And we just didn't know when we came back, what it would look like or what it'd be. Where I grew up in Texas, there's always tornadoes. So, but I've never seen flood damage. And so it is so much worse. It's a natural.
Yeah, it's just devastating.
It's just devastating.
But yeah,
to,
just because
drive
everything
up.
is brown doesn't mean the town isn't alive.
Yeah,
Either.
the roads
Yeah.
we were able to get. You're able to get around now, and
It's the improvement is amazing.
Yeah.
There's no mountains of trash and stuff
or mud,
everywhere.
Yeah.
And while parts of the city are completely washed away and haven't quite been touched yet, downtown and West Asheville and Waynesville and Silva and Black Mountain, these are all places that are really happy to
that's
welcome
good.
people back.
And the sun is out. It's about to be
gorgeous.
March. Spring is here.
Yeah.
Or I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Everybody-
hopefully that renewed energy of, the sun and spring and summer can really pump some more life back into this place for y'all.
Yeah, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad we're here. We're going to spend our money here local,
Oh, yeah.
especially.
Yeah, we're coming back tonight for some pierogies, and we're gonna get some of that
Yeah.
muscadine. All right,
I know,
we're
we definitely
gonna
do.
we're gonna cut it off.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for the
we
time.
always appreciate it. So cheers.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.